Hey everybody, welcome to TLDChat. My name is Brent Schlenker, and today we're hanging out with the fantastic guest, Kristin Anthony, and we'll be talking with her shortly. But before we get started, I just wanted to tell everybody a little bit about TLDC, Training, Learning, and Development Conference Community and Chat. That's why we're here, and that's why we hang out every morning at 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time, 4 p.m. UK time. And I've just noticed that we don't have any UK representation yet. So that means we can't start. So everybody just, we're going to have to just sit here and be quiet until everybody from across the pond shows up. Okay, maybe not. Maybe we'll get started anyways. While we're waiting for our UK folks, I'll tell you a little bit about the Training, Learning, and Development Conference coming up in January. We will be meeting in beautiful, sunny Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, at the Galvanize facility. It is actually a very geek chic location, I like to say, and so it will be an interesting opportunity for everybody to get together and hang out in the non-hotel centered event. So it will be very, very, very different in what we do, and in a different location, something a little bit more casual. So I am really looking forward to it. I love the venue and think it will be a fantastic place for us to all meet and talk about training, learning, and development. So if you're interested in being a part of that, please feel free to register here at tldc18.com and let us know if you have any questions. Also, think about becoming a member of the TLDC community. If you want to, you can click on the Become a Member link on the website here and gather up all the fantastic information and all the benefits of the TLDC community. TLDChat is always going to remain $0, otherwise known as free. And we will always make that open because it is an open community, and kind of one of the things that we do, and to give back to the community as well, and to offer value to those people that are doing the work of training, learning, and development. And the reason why I emphasize the work of training, learning, and development is that not everybody has the title. Not everybody's an official trainer or an L&D leader or a CLO or a manager or a director. Some people are doing the work of training, learning, and development, but maybe they are in a different role. Maybe you're in HR doing something. Maybe you're a product manager. Maybe you're an engineer and a subject matter expert, and you just need to get people trained. There are a lot of different reasons and for creating training, and they are growing daily with all of the disruption that's happening in so many different marketplaces and industries, including our own. So it's another reason why having daily conversations with your peers is fun. Besides the fact that Anthony Altieri is here too, and he's just a crack up and that. So Anthony, how's it going? I hope the Red Cross is doing well. Those of you that maybe missed a few shows back during the hurricane stuff going on in Houston, Anthony was giving a call out and a shout out to anybody with some tech skills that wants to head out and be a part of the communications team and help them. Just be a volunteer and help with the computer stuff and help them stay up and running and help people communicate. They're still down there. Even though you may not be seeing stuff on the news, there's still a lot of cleanup and a lot of people that can use your help. And when there are a lot of volunteers and a lot of workers all gathered in one place to do the work of helping others, those people need to communicate and they need technology. And in that case, there needs to be some people that know how that technology works. And so you don't have to be a back-end engineer, Anthony said. You can just know a little something about computers and come be an extra pair of hands and be helpful. So if you have already donated some money to either the Red Cross or any of the other institutions that are out there helping out, but you feel like you need to do more, you really want to be there and be helpful to that community, then Anthony's your man. Get hooked up with Anthony, and he'll point you in the right place and give you that ability to go down and make that happen. So thanks, Anthony, for being a part of the community and helping out and giving us all the messages so everybody can reach out to you as well for that. And with that, we have somebody today from the Houston area, but she's not part of the chaos going on down there. It's Kristin, Anthony. How are you, Kristin?
Howdy. I'm well.
And we are so glad to hear that because of all that Houston stuff going on. You were just telling me that you're outside of the mess, so it didn't really affect you much.
Yeah. It's mostly centered on downtown. And actually, there's a local civic tech organization that's been doing a lot of work around making apps to help people know where shelters are and know where to get food and all kinds of things like that. So, yeah.
Fantastic. That is awesome to hear. And I'm showing on the screen here for folks, if they don't know where they can learn more about you and who you are, knanthony.com is your website. For those of you who want to do a little scrolling and link clicking and watching some of the work that she does, you can take a look there while we're chatting. So thanks, Kara, dropping that link in for us. Fantastic. We've also pre-posted some questions today, which is something we don't normally do, or not so much pre-work, but Luis was kind enough to drop some questions in here for us, which is always helpful for us. So this is always good. It's good to see everybody here in the chat. And let's just jump in here. You guys can jump into the Q&A and you can vote some of these questions up or down if you're new to the system. But I'll just jump in on the first question, Kristin. And what development tools do you use? And what do you mean by an unopinionated developer?
Right. So one of the things that I've been sort of championing for a long time, and it's become even more important now for me, is the idea that you should have as many tools in your tool belt as possible to help solve client problems. So, sometimes you see people who sort of hang their hat on one particular tool, and that tool is great. And I'm not saying not to use a tool, but I think that there's a lot of value. Anthony says, I'll say it. There's a lot of value in having a very large tool set. And I'll actually give you a concrete example. I had a client just recently who wanted to do an activity that you see in a lot of diversity training. And that activity has to do with a person having a lot of different beads, and they sort of separate those beads out into bowls or jars to help give them that aha moment of, this is the diversity of the people I hang around with, either gender-wise or socioeconomic-wise or ethnic-wise. And so what that meant was that I needed to be able to create something where a person could have potentially an infinite number of beads. Now, you can't do that easily in any authoring tool, any rapid e-learning tool. And so because I had a JavaScript game framework, Phaser.js, under my belt, I could go and rapid prototype that in about half a day. And actually, what ended up happening is that both myself and me got concerned about the complexity of that activity. We ended up pivoting to a different activity that I also built using using JavaScript, using a chart framework. So it's just being able to solve problems like that without having to say, no, I can't because my authoring tool won't let me. For me, it's always yes and that's incredibly valuable.
Absolutely. And there's a reason why I just jumped right into that, is that I wanted to set the stage with you and your ideas behind this and a little bit of your background. So now let's take a step back a little bit and tell everybody a little bit about who you are in general and how you kind of stumbled into being an instructional designer and you know, how you got here.
Yeah. So I started off as an AmeriCorps Vista. I actually thought I was going to be in IT for a while. That's where I thought I would be going. But I got a job at a education service center here in Texas, in Austin. And that is a place that, among all of the other things that they do for teachers, is that they provide professional development. And so my big project there, one that lasted for about half my career at that particular place, wonderful, wonderful organization, was a e-learning project. And it was my first time using Storyline. It was Storyline 1. And we built this huge thing. And right off the bat, I knew that this was not right. There was something wrong with what we had built, but I had no vocabulary to voice it. And essentially what it was these really, really beautiful slides that had a sort of GPS theme, but it was text and voiceover and click next, and text and voiceover and click next. And again, I knew that there was something bad about this because I was bored developing it. But I had no vocabulary to say what was wrong. And so I started looking this up, and I sort of happened upon this term, instructional design. And that's when I thought, okay, I want to do that. I want to do what I'm doing, but better. And so about 2 years into that job, I applied for an actual instructional design position, and I got on at a university extension service and spent 2 years there. And that was just an incredible opportunity to learn. I always like to say it had the structure to prop me up in my ignorance, but it also had really wonderful people who let me try out a lot of the new things that I was learning. And so from there, I've just been continuing to try and figure out what exactly it is that I want to do. And the thing that I think I figured out about myself so far is that I really love development work. And so every position, I'm moving further and further towards development work until I finally went freelance this year. And I'm actually getting the opportunity to do more and more web work and web development work and game development work, as well as instructional design work. So that is my journey in a nutshell.
Which is fantastic. And I love that you're with your skill set, you have the capability and you're okay with doing that other type of work too, because it always feels to me like everybody, you know, I think all of those different areas can, there's certain things that you can take from each one of those. So either from web development or from game development can apply very much to e-learning development and vice versa, right? Yeah. They all can mix together. So it's always, I think it's always good to diversify yourself and the work that you do. So perfect. I love that. I love the whole story, but I have to dial back to about how you kind of got into it and that first e-learning course project before you had any vocabulary around that, because that to me is a critical part. Like you at that moment in time is actually the most important audience I've seen in my career that I wanted to do TLDChat for. Right, for those folks, and I wanted TLDC because there's so many people out there that do that, right? You have a need, you're in a position, you're either in a job or at a nonprofit or doing something, and all of a sudden somebody says we need to train some people or we need to do an onboarding program because we're growing, and nobody really knows, and they are just like, well, you're really good at talking to people, or you're really good at technical stuff. I've heard about this thing called e-learning. Maybe you could build us something. Why don't you go check that out for us? Or, you know, it's all of the many weird ways that people just stumble into needing to do that. And I just want to dig a little bit deeper on your thoughts around, I knew it felt wrong or it didn't feel right, but I wasn't sure why. It's that moment. Like, what? Let's drill into that a little bit, and maybe we can even ask the chat, right? Did any of you in the chat, deal with that? Did you run into that moment, and how did you deal with it? And let's look a little bit deeper into that. So did you look up things on YouTube and try to figure it out? Like, what did that search look like when you finally discovered what instructional design was?
Yeah, it was mostly web searches. I didn't really do a lot of YouTube things. YouTube had been around for a few years, but I wasn't really looking at it. So it was mostly websites. And I'm glad you went back to that, because I tell you that I've been interested in the Newbie Experience myself, just because I think partially I still consider myself a newbie. But the thing that just drove me crazy when I was searching was that I hit upon all of these people who had years and years of experience. And they were saying it felt like, whether or not it was objectively, it felt to me like they had these huge lists of thou shalt and thou shalt nots. And I'm like, I'm a nobody. Nobody is going to listen to me say, you're doing this wrong. Stop. Right? And so what I really wanted was somebody to say, you're in this position. Let's validate the fact that you're a newbie. Here's some small things that you can try to help make this thing better. You might not make it, 100% better, but just little tiny things that you can do to make this better. And so that was a huge frustration for me getting started.
Yeah, because it's funny. It's that all of those people that you talk about, it's almost the curse of Google, right? It's like all of the experts and the thought leaders, if we use all that terminology, that have
Right.
all the websites and that write all the articles and that do all of that kind of stuff, they're the ones that bubble up to the top of those searches, because that's just how Google works, because they think that those are the people and that's the information that is going to be the most important. But you're so right. I mean, just the basics, right? Just little things to make your media, or to be able to share a message or a concept with an audience. There are little things that we can do for people to make that better. And like I said, that's why this is a great conversation. And I love this, because that's what I'm kind of hoping we can be for people. Is, I don't want people to be afraid. And I've even had people come and say, oh, I don't know, you've got a lot of really smart people in there, and I don't know if, I would fit in or whatever. And I'm like, no, you're exactly the type of person. You're in exactly the perfect spot where you need to be. We don't, we joke around a lot in the chat, but other than that, we're pretty serious about what we do, and we just like to have a good time doing it, and we all like to learn from each other. So so it's great. So what do you think? Let's now that you've gone through that process and you're knee deep in it, and you're doing work in this space, what do you think? Like, give me, like, just off the top of your head, like 3 things, little things, that if somebody is like you right now, joining us or maybe watching the recording, what would you tell them to, would be something easy for them to just kick their stuff up a notch?
Yeah. Okay. I'd say sort of thing 1 would be go off, and this is always my advice to other newbies, is other designers besides ourselves are never just practicing at work. I think it's really important to make some time, and I realize that everybody's busy and you want to have a real life outside of work, and I honor that. But I think it's really important that outside of work, you make some time to build some stuff, little tiny things, so that you build up a skill set, so that when someone says, I want to do this thing, you're not like, okay, that's going to take me, 2 days of figuring out how to build this thing, and then maybe I can start trying to build this thing. It's greasing the wheel, so that you when someone asks you to do something, you're like, yes, I can do that. So I always think that's really important. And the other thing that I like to encourage newbies to do is, again, at least from my experience, when you're a newbie in the field, you don't necessarily have the position or the authority to even feel like you can ask a lot of questions. And so I'd say sort of the first tiny step is to just ask just a little tiny question. Like what is one question that you can ask about this thing that you're supposed to be building that'll help you and the SME have an aha moment? And so just come up with one question at first, something like, who is the audience? Just start there. Because again, for a lot of us as newbies, we don't even get to decide if there's a needs analysis. It's just like, I'm handing you this training that we have said is going to be built. So even just one question like, who is the audience? Then you can go and here's the third thing I'd say is, and this sort of relates to the first, is be able to do rapid prototyping. I can't tell you the first time I did that in my first real ID job, that I did a job at the University Extension Service. It was just revolutionary. It is, instead of sort of putting all the effort into the rapid e-learning tool, I went out and just drew some wicked ugly stuff on a piece of paper, came back in with the SME and said, well, what do you think about this? And he was able to come back and say, no, that's not going to work because of X, Y, and Z. And just having that kind of dialogue with you and the SME, even if it's a case of this training is going to be made, whether you think it's a good idea or not, even that, I think, takes your e-learning from something that is potentially text indexed to something that's more well-designed. So being able to do rapid paper prototyping is just huge.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And speaking of that, one of the people that I know that does that very, very well, you and I were talking about him earlier, Kevin Thorn. He's on Facebook right now. For those of you that don't know, he's live streaming his process and exactly that. So every day he's been getting on and going through a complete storyline project, an interactive project from beginning to end, and walking through that whole process. And I don't know if I think he did it for 2 weeks. I don't know if the project is done. That with the holiday weekend, I kind of stopped following and tracking along with that. I think the project might be done, but obviously all those videos are going to be live on his Facebook page. So I would encourage folks, if you want to watch somebody do exactly what Kristin's talking about, hit up those recordings of his live stream, and he did like an hour and a half or so every single day, just doing this live thing and sketching everything out, drawing it, and asking those questions like you were talking about, and moving sort of forward so everybody could see that whole entire process from beginning to end and how he works. And I think that's the realism that I think is fun about this new technology and being able to share with people and how they do their work and whatnot. Because again, to the what we were talking about earlier too, I think a lot of people, we just sprinkle magic fairy dust on PowerPoint slides and all of a sudden, boom, it's instructionally sound. And it just it doesn't take you any work at all, right? And that should only cost $100, right? Because you just did it. You just snapped your fingers, made it happen, and you drop a price tag on them, and they're like, what? You're like, no, it really does take a lot of time and a lot of work to get this done. So it's an extremely interesting process, and great to hear somebody still considering themselves a newbie. I think in the Asian cultures of Buddhism and Taoism, they call it the beginner's mind, I think. And so always putting yourself in that spot, I think, is helpful. as well, and staying there. And I'm certain I've missed it in the chat, but I'm certain Anthony was very psyched about you promoting people's technical skills. Maybe we could talk about that briefly. You know what? You talked a little bit about being able to prototype your own solution and kind of get outside that authoring tool. That was kind of where your training and your education started, was kind of in that IT realm, though, right? And is there a way that you could help people get that same kind of knowledge, or is it a little bit harder, easier said than done kind of thing?
So when I said IT, well, let me back up. I actually took a programming class in high school, at which point programming meant just HTML and CSS. And then I liked it a lot, but it sort of fell out of it. And then I went back to library school, actually, as we call it. And at that point, I got back into it because I was interested in using tools like Drupal and WordPress. Mm-hmm. And so I started dabbling with it again. And then I was sort of unable to really stick with it until I found Free Code Camp, which I am hyping. I love that program. It's really, really useful.
Cool. Somebody find a link for me and pop it in the chat.
And it's a really, I think, well done instructionally program for teaching JavaScript specifically. But the impetus for that was that I wanted to be able to build more things with the authoring tool I was using at the time, which was Lectora. And I actually was able to use, like, one of my first and proudest things that I was able to do for my job with my new coding skills was to be able to allow people to trace fingerprints on the screen using a jQuery plugin. Learning technical skills, and we were talking about this a little bit before, I've promoted it all along, but I think that there's always this pushback from people in our community that, sort of, should IDs be doing that? And I don't want to sort of downplay that as an experience or an idea, that maybe we should be debating whether or not IDs should be actually learning to code. But I think there are a lot of people, both inside of ID and outside of it, who would say whether or not you actually learn to code altogether, you should at least have knowledge of how your tools work and how code works, so that you can talk intelligently with people who are doing that work for you. But I think as far as learning it, it's tough, just because, again, you have to do it, I think, at least part of the time outside of work, right? Yeah. You're not going to be able to just learn it all at work, and you have to practice, you have to build things. And I also think it's important to build those things and put them out in the world so that other people can sort of give you feedback. And I think that's the bit that holds people back, is that making time for making.
I love that. I love that. There's the quote of the day, Luis. That needs to be on the blog post. Making time for making. I love that. Well, let's see. All right, we're at 8:29, and I normally take a little bit of a break right at the 30 mark, and here's the reason why. I want you to be able to engage with the chat a little bit, and so you take a look at what they're talking about. But one way, and I'll do some more promo stuff and talk a little bit more about TLDC, and to kind of tease what we're going to talk about when we come back. You have a micro learning app, Luis said. I definitely want to talk to you a little bit more about that, and some more of your design tools, and how you share the work that you do with the community. But I'll let you get to know some of the folks in the chat real quick while I throw up some more screens, and just say thank you so much to everybody for hanging out today and being a part of TLDC and TLDC TLD chat, and Sorry, I'm just, the brain's firing on some strange cylinders today. So I think it's just because I'm feeling horrible that I've been mispronouncing everybody's names all week long. And so I'm super happy Kristin Anthony has a very easy name for me to say. So I'm glad there wasn't any strange accents involved or anything like that. So it's making me feel a little bit better, but I'm feeling awfully self-conscious about what I call people. But anyways, I digress. The Training, Learning, and Development Conference, TLDC18.com. Go there, check it out. Tell all your friends about the event of the century. The schedule is coming together nicely, I might also add. I always strategically leave open a few slots, and there's always ways that we can flex. The schedule is a living, breathing thing. And when people are deciding what events to go to, they always ask me that they need to wait because they have to show it to their management to get approval and things like that. And so it's this weird double-edged sword. How many metaphors can I come up with for this? It's chicken before the egg thing. And it's like, we have to put something out there. And it's hard for me because I'm always constantly thinking of cool new things that I want to add in. And I feel like if I fill the whole thing, then I can't be creative and we can't do fun things anymore. So just know that it's extremely flexible and it will be taking on a life of its own and be changing over time. But just also know that there is a very decent framework up there already with some really, really good sessions already lined up and ready to roll. Could they fluctuate and shift a little bit? Yes, maybe, but the ones that are up there right now are pretty darn solid. And it's the empty spaces that I left and that actually don't even exist on the schedule that will be fun to fill over the next few months and to talk about and to engage with folks. So if you are one of my friends and colleagues in the industry and you've already talked to me and you do not see your name up there, do not fear, do not be upset with me, please reach out to me, contact me, let me know. It could just mean that I just said, your name fell off my list or something like that and I feel horrible. So you guys all know me. Just give me a call or text me or whatnot and just reach out. It's all good. We'll work it all out and we'll deal with that. But very, very, very excited about the event coming up. And man, it's coming up fast. So let me just also remind you that Arizona is beautiful in January. And that also means that everybody and their mother's uncle comes here in January and the place fills up like crazy. We've got the Phoenix Open here. We've got the Barrett Jackson Auto Auction. And then there's the Arabian Horse Show, I think, that comes into town around the same time. All sorts of concerts and events, and it's just, it is crazy packed. So I would encourage you to book your hotel or Airbnb or however you find a place to stay when you go to events, and get on that early. And make sure you've secured yourself a location, or else you might be sleeping on my couch. And I only have 2 of those, so I can't hold everybody. So get on that now and definitely check it out. And again, I would encourage you all to help us out here at TLDC and become a member. And join our membership program and become a little bit tighter with the community that we all love so much. The learning and development community has been my life for the last 20 plus years. And the only reason why I stick around, okay, maybe not the only reason, but it's because the people in this industry are fantastic. And I love hanging out with all y'all. And it is always it's fun for it to be the start of my day and to hang out with you guys and to get to talk shop and to sort of prep my brain for my day. I learned so much from all of you, and I hope you all gain some value from what we're doing here at TLDC as well. And so if you do feel like you're gaining even a little bit, one nugget of information every single day, that's some significant value over time. So help us out and give a little value back in the form of joining the membership, or at the very least sign up for our newsletter so we know that you're at least interested in what we're doing and you want to hear more about it. That's always a great way to go as well. So thanks again, everybody. Quick shout out to Luis, my partner in crime, the man who works tirelessly behind the scenes, making sure everything looks awesome, keeps everything functioning. I wouldn't be able to do this if it wasn't for Luis. So everybody give a shout out to Luis and Kara, who helps us out so much with the social media stuff, and Craig, who helps us out when he's here taking notes. And gosh darn it, all my friends from the UK and across the pond. Joe, you're awesome. I don't see Marco here today, but Bethany normally hops in. My friend Lisa, I haven't seen her in the chat in a while. I'm gonna have to ping her and tell her she needs to start popping in again more often. Maybe I have to make her a guest. Maybe that's why she's not hanging out anymore. But Joe, maybe we can do the UK show, and it can be Joe, Bethany, Marco, and Lisa. So somebody, let's we'll keep it totally UK based. How about that? Well, except Bethany's in Scotland, I think, right? I don't know. Team UK, yes, that's what we'll do. We'll do Team UK. We've got a lot of good friends in Scotland. That's it. Oh, it does include Scotland. Well, okay, there you go. It's all the good stuff. And thank you for Mike for dropping that too. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for hanging out. So, anyways, I don't want to belabor that, but I just always do feel like I have to say thanks to everybody, and just for all of you for hanging out. You make my days so much better every single day, hanging out and doing this. So. Thank you all very, very much. And now, before I waste any more time, let's talk about the most awesome part of what we're going to talk about today, Kristin. And this is fantastic. So I got to know something about this micro learning app. As soon as I read that in the questions, I was like, oh, yes, I do want to talk about this. What's up with that?
Awesome. Hurricane Harvey weekend, I thought maybe the power's going to go out. So I said, hey, I want to learn how to build an app, so I'm going to try.
Everybody just says that, right? I mean, I just want to build an app.
Absolutely. It actually started out from one of the, I promote a lot of ideas about sort of how newbies can fit practice into their lives. And one of the things that I was trying to experiment with myself was sort of partnering up with a colleague who had a slightly different skill set and trying to make something together. And so I actually partnered up with Ellen Hayes, who is another newbie instructional designer who I actually interviewed on my show a little while back. And we sort of had the idea of creating a little tiny web thing about the intersection of user experience and learning experience design, and trying to make it just sort of super, super applicable and very tiny. But I went on my first vacation in 2 years. And so I sort of went dark, and then I came back, had to deal with client stuff, tried to get back into it. Then she sort of went dark. And so that, it didn't keep going, unfortunately, but I didn't want to lose the idea. And then I ran across this idea in the instructional design subreddit where somebody was asking about sort of the best way to sell. They had these ideas for courses, sort of sell those courses. And somebody said, well, build an app. And the person said, that sounds great. How do I do that? And I said, yeah, how do you do that? And so I actually started building this app around, again, around UX and ID. And the idea behind it is very short lessons about how to apply UX to learning experience design. And it's mostly done. I'm testing it right now. And I'm actually thinking about possibly, although this may not happen, trying to see if I can hook XAPI into it and let it send statements. But just sort of the idea is, again, from a newbie perspective,
Yeah.
And I'll tell you another story actually here is we actually had a person on the ID subreddit who just submitted this story about, we've created all of these products, but when we get back sort of statistics about them, it's like only 60% of people are doing this. How do we fix it? And they were sort of thinking about creating more product. And I thought, this is why I read so widely. It's like that is a perfect opportunity to implement UX research, causal research. Instead of creating more product, can you ask? And again, wanting to be clear as a newbie, it's sometimes you may not feel like you can ask these questions, but if possible, being able to say, hey, wait a minute, can I go ask 2 to 5 people why they're not taking these courses? Yep. Right? And even that tiny step is just so insightful for you and for your SMEs, and it'll help you to create better product next time. And as far as sort of selling it to supervisors and the higher ups, it's if we spend the budget that you're going to pay me anyway on doing this little tiny amount of research, then you're going to save time and money down the road. And so that's the sort of things that hoping that the lessons on this app will help people to implement.
That's fantastic. And so do you have any idea when it will be available, or is it available now, or when can
It's not quite yet. I'm hoping the end of this month. That's my hope to get it out.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I've been saving this for the end of the show, but I'm just going to tell you right now, can we have you back on? Because there's so much I want to talk about, and I know there's no way we're going to get to it in 15 minutes. And so we're going to have you back. But if we time it right about the time that you're going to release that might be kind of fun. We can help promote it, and we can talk specifically about that. I think that would be a really great conversation.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely good to. But I didn't want to derail us with that. I just wanted to throw it out since we were on that topic. So we absolutely look forward to that. We've got a bunch more questions to jump through here, and I'm trying to let a little bit of cohesion between all of the questions. But what the heck? Let's just drop in and just start. Let's go with the ones that have been voted up. Your portfolio looks great. Why and how did you build your portfolio? There you go.
So why did I build my portfolio? That came out of my professional design job, and I started understanding that in order to be good at development work, I needed to practice outside of work. And so I said, I want to build these tiny portfolio projects and then put them up. And so I got my own storyline license. Yeah, my own storyline license at that time, and started building these tiny things. And then I actually began to move beyond that and beyond that and beyond that. And I also, and here's another thing for anybody who does, a lot of times when I tell people, go out and build a portfolio, they always say, but I do the work that I do, it's work for hire. There's intellectual property issues. And what I like to say is, ask. So quite a few of these projects are actually screenshots from real clients, because that's important, real clients. And I just asked, can I put these things up on my website? And they said, yeah. So there's that. And then there's my experiments that I do frequently, again, outside of work. There's JavaScript, so all those sorts of things. Right now, as far as sort of how it's built, it's on WordPress. I'm actually thinking about moving it to a static site to sort of make it faster. But right now, it's just WordPress, and that is sort of the easiest way you can get started building your own portfolio.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And that that proprietary thing goes, I think that's a great tip for everybody to even remember and to think about, grabbing a screenshot. And we're all pretty creative. We can all go into some of these photography or imaging apps, right? And you can scratch if you have to, or out. It long as you have something up on your website or somewhere that you can always explain it. Maybe you do a little video and you explain how you built it or why you built it. And then in the video, you can say, listen, this is a proprietary project, but so I'm crossing out a bunch of stuff, but here was the basic idea. Here's what we were going after, right? You can stay really generic and still be able to share that work and that knowledge that you gain from that project.
Yeah, and I well, sorry to interrupt, but I see that Kim says that the answer is not always yes. You're absolutely right, Kim. But you can't know unless you ask. And another tip that my friend David Charney actually mentioned was sometimes it's really helpful, instead of just sort of going in and asking out of the blue, is to actually create what you want. Like if it's a show reel, just go ahead and create that thing and then show it to them. And that way they have an actual product to say yes or no to, as opposed to the idea of their stuff being out there. They can say yes or no to that thing that you've created. And so sometimes that's helpful. But if the answer is just no, then that's where building your own projects comes into play.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we were going with this, and I'm glad that question was in the queue, because it seemed fortuitous, because we were going to talk about how you do that, how you, besides your website, do you participate, let's say, for example, in some of the storyline? I know they have a group out there that they do the storyline challenges and things like that, and our friend at Amazon, Melissa Melloway, she promotes a lot of, showing your work and every time, and she practices all the time exactly what you're talking about, and then she posts it into social media or onto the website that's the Storyline community offers. Do you participate in stuff like that too?
I did, and that's always where I tell people to start, because to be honest, and this is a thing that I've been trying to change somehow, the Storyline e-learning challenges is sort of the only community of practice around design and development that we have now. But I think we could use something that's more vendor agnostic. And for myself, there came a point where I wanted to become that unopinionated developer. So I didn't want to be doing everything in Storyline. And B, I wanted to be doing things that were a little larger and more meaningful for me. And so I still recommend doing at least one project a month. I think the most important part is consistency, whatever that looks like for you. But I try to do one project a month, and I started doing games because that's something that I personally want to work on. So I was releasing a game a month for a while, and now, there's this app. And so it's just sort of one thing that I can put out there in the world in a month. And I actually, other projects that I've done have been Hack ID. I actually created a website that has a bunch of free resources for self-taught instructional designers, because it was one of those things that I thought I would have loved to have had this as a newbie myself. So that was a thing that I built using my web development skills and put out there in the world. So it's, whatever consistency looks like for you, that's what you want to go for. If that's once a quarter, if it's once a month, build a thing and put it out there. Host it somewhere. That can be Amazon 3. If you have your own website space, you can host it there very easily, and then just put it out there.
It's fantastic, and I will second the emphasis on putting it out there. Right? Yeah. You get. I think that helps many different aspects of what you're doing as a professional. I know a lot of us are shy, a lot of us are creative types, and we stay inside our personal bubbles and our shells, and we just like to be creative, and we like to work on things until we think it's finished before we cut it loose. But that consistency forces you into sort of a box that says, listen, I've devoted this much time to doing this. This one is done. It's time to cut it loose, and then next month I'm going to move on to the next one, right?
Yeah.
And that's important. Practicing getting to done and releasing it and seeing what that feels like when you get that feedback is also you're training yourself as well in other ways that you're learning from. So there's so many different reasons why this is important. I think, and I think, we talk about the skills, and that everybody focuses on those skills and why that's important. But I think there's that internal and those emotional skills that you're gaining as well.
Yeah.
Right? When you're going through the process, and building confidence is as important as having skills, right? Being confident in those skills as you're building them, and putting that product out there is a great way to get those particular skills. So fantastic.
Yeah. And I want to say that the mistakes you make along the way are just as instructive.
Right. Failure is good.
Yeah. It's like some people, I've written a lot on my blog there, actually about things that haven't turned out well for me, because I think, once again, from that newbie perspective, as a newbie, I want to hear about that time where your stuff was just screwed up, and it didn't work out, and the SMEs were really difficult, and you were frustrated, and sort of how that happened. And as far as sort of, I've tried to build a vendor agnostic community a couple of times, and have failed and failed and failed. And I put all of those out there on the blog so that people can see, this happens, and you just keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. And I hope everybody will take that to heart. Seriously. I mean, that is so important. And it's again, it's one of the reasons why I love to do this. Everybody knows here in the community, I work for a vendor. This is my second vendor that I've been a part of now, but I really, as much as I love to share what I'm doing and share the new product, I try really hard to stay vendor agnostic as well. But while still, staying true to my day job, but it's important. And I think having a community like this and being able to share what you do, and share the business and process of what we do is important, and the tools are great too. There are a lot of different places you can go to learn the tools, but I like us to talk about all this stuff that people don't really talk about. I tend to refer to it as the non-sexy side of what we do, right? Everybody likes to geek out on the tech and on the new shiny thing and the VR and the AR and the authoring tools and everything. But it's like, there's also the business of what we do. There's the politics of what we do. There's dealing with people. There's, practicing and struggles with failure and needing to learn the tools and all that kind of stuff. So there's this other, just, so much more that goes into the work that we do.
Yeah.
And I like to try to bring us all around and to actually have those discussions, because I seriously don't think we talk about it enough. So I appreciate you going there.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree. This is amazing to be able to talk about it.
Yeah, it's very therapeutic. I mean, for me, I hope it is for everybody else too. But to be able, especially for somebody that works from home, right? I don't have a lot of colleagues around to commiserate with or anything. So this community is it for me. You are all my collective coworkers. So
yeah.
It makes good. So, all right. So maybe we should do like a lightning round. I've been kind of rambling and dragging out these questions, but let's make sure we hit these up. So, before we run out of time. So what are your top 3 design tool must-haves?
Are we talking about design as in like visual design, or design as in development?
I don't know. Let's go with digital design.
Okay. Gosh, I'd say Trello. Trello is huge because it helps me to track projects. Let's see.
Cool.
Prototyping, it's honest to God, just pencil and paper. I have a sketchbook that I use.
Sketchbook and pencil or pen or whatever you use. I mean, I know so many people that are really technical, and they always go back to the pencil and the paper.
It's wonderful because you don't get that whole trap. I'm in the tool and I spent 5 hours on this. None of that's there. And I think the other thing that's coming up for me right now is JavaScript. JavaScript and prototyping in the browser has been huge on a lot of my projects.
Cool. Excellent. Speed round answer. Love it. What's the latest thing fascinating you right now?
Right now, the latest thing fascinating me, I'd say probably this Ionic 3, which is the tool that I'm using to build this app. I just think it's so interesting that right now we've gone from having to learn completely different languages in order to build native apps to being able to use JavaScript and TypeScript, which is what I know, in order to build those things.
Yes. What is Iconic 3? Is that what you called it?
Ionic. It's a
Ionic.
yeah, it's a framework for building cross-platform apps, and it uses Angular and TypeScript, and it's amazing that like someone like me, who again is still very much a newbie at coding as well, could build something like that within a week and a half, 2 weeks.
That's fantastic. I'm going to have to look into that. Actually, that sounds very intriguing. I've never heard of that. I'm sure everybody, all you tech guys and gals in the chat are already have heard of that and working with it. But maybe if somebody could drop a link in, that would be cool too. All right, Nag. Yeah, you work on it. I've kind of assumed you would. Yeah, our resident engineer. So always appreciate you hanging out and sharing the love too. Okay, so why did you decide to go freelance? Oh, my stand's in the way. And and how's that treating you?
Freelance has been doing very well, though I freely admit it's odd. So as far as why I decided to do it, like I said, I have been trying to move ever towards more and more development and being able to use my web development skills. And I had a client actually from a university that I used to work at, who I'd been doing some small side projects for. And they said, we'd like you to be able to work on this more full time. Plus, we want you to help us build a web platform for selling our courses. And I said, that sounds great. And I was working at a software company at the time. And I asked them, okay, can I do part-time? Because I had this opportunity to really learn more development skills. They weren't having it, and I said, "Okay, bye." And that was really the way it went. No planning, no foresight. I was just like, "I'm okay letting you go because I want to do this." And awesome. So yeah, I want to say that it's been strange because that particular client has given me long-term work. I've been working with them for several months. I have several months more to go. Then I actually cold Twittered actually some other people that were doing really cool stuff, and I actually got some long-term freelance work with one of those companies. And the other thing have been people that I've worked with on the side for other smaller contracts. So it's been, on the one hand, it's like I've laid the groundwork, but on the other hand, it's just been luck.
Yeah, fantastic. Fantastic. Well, listen, I want to make sure that everybody knows how they can get a hold of you if they've got work that they need done, or if they want to reach out to you and learn and be a part of their community. So we've got your website, knanthony.com, but where else can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. I am at @anthchris. You can find my podcast. That's dearinstructionaldesigner.com.
I forgot about that. Yes, thank you for adding that. Oh, shoot. Okay.
And actually, if anybody wants to be a guest on the show, it's experienced a little bit of podcast death so far, but I'm looking for more guests. And also the instructional design subreddit is a great place to be. Lots of good conversations and lots of newbies in there who could use it.
Oh, fantastic. What a great place. Yeah, to be hanging out. I always forget about Reddit. I used to be in there all the time, and then I don't remember why I backed out of that, but I got to get back into that for sure. So, yeah. So if anybody out there is still there that can drop in some of those links that she just rattled off, that would be great. Or I'm going to close out your video when I say goodbye, but you'll still be in as okay. I'm doing my closeout stuff. So please feel free to drop in as many links as you want. We're all about promoting all of our peers and making sure everybody knows how to get in touch with everybody else. So please don't be shy about that at all. Let everybody know how to get a hold of you. And thank you so much for being here. This has been so nice to meet you.
Awesome. Thank you, Brett. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, we'll definitely do it again. Like I said, we'll circle back around offline, and you know, as you get closer to your releaser of the micro learning app, let us know, and we'll have you back on, and we can talk about that specifically, and help you get some promotion around that too. So
awesome, thank you.
Good stuff. All right, great to meet you. Take care. Have a good day.
Adios.
All right, everybody. That was the wonderful and amazing Kristin Anthony. I am so glad I got to meet her today. This is one of the most fantastic things about doing this, is getting to meet great people who are doing great work, and you know, who enjoy doing this stuff as much as I do, and as much as I know all of you do. So you know, adding another creative person to our list of folks to engage with is always fantastic. So again, thank you, Kristin, for hanging out with us, and thanks to all of you for hanging out as well. We've got the event coming up. We've got the newsletter you can sign up for. Hit us up at tldc.us, and there's all sorts of fun to be had still. So tomorrow is Video Friday, for those of you who do not know, and so we like to geek out on the video tech, and we're having a little bit of a guest kerfluffle right now. We're trying to swap some people around. We were going to have Colin Steed on, as one of the founders of Learning Now TV, but he needs to push out until the following Friday, and so the following Friday's guest I'm trying to get connected with and have her on tomorrow, but that might be too late of notice. So maybe we might be just winging it tomorrow, or we might have a guest. We're still working on that. So yeah, you know, it just happens. It's one of those things. So but anyways, either way, no matter what happens, it's still Video Friday, and we love Video Friday. It's always a good time. So not only is it the end of the week, but we get to talking about geeky tech video stuff, and we get to geek out on that. So I'm looking forward to it, as always. And everybody, thanks again so much for hanging out. Hope you had a great time today, getting to know Kristin Anthony, and learning more about what she does. And we will see you tomorrow. Everybody have a fantastic day.